Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ndileka Mhlauli, and you are on Are We Transforming? It's a platform where we give everybody an opportunity to discuss topics that we would have agreed upon with them. It's like issues which affect people within Africa, just to find a way to identify gaps and also solutions. So today we decided, because it's the last weekend of February, it will be good for us to discuss a topic that relates to relationships, but not necessarily the details of how you deal with relationships, but just to find a way to capacitate people on issues relating to sexual health and sex education. So the topic for today, we decided it will be the importance of having sex education and discussions amongst couples as a tool to deal with GBV. The reason for that topic really was actually after we have had the session where we discussed about men not being given support, usually when relationships end. There's always an expectation that they are strong. But over and above that, there was somebody who gave a comment that said women would usually say words that belittle men. And when I was thinking about it, I just thought this will also go to the issues relating to intimacy. So who will be the best person to talk about intimacy other than somebody who has went to school for it and has studied for it and has got a following of, I think, 12.5 thousand people whom she continuously engaged with on sexual education and sexual health. The person is other than Ndileka Mhlauli. And when I call her, she immediately agreed. I was having goosebumps 2 or 3 days ago. She's like, no, I'm in. So thank you so much, Ndileka, for making time. I really, really appreciate. I believe we're going to learn quite a lot today. Take your time and introduce yourself in details, and then you can take us through the presentation. We've got 2 hours if you've got enough time to be able to. We just want to allow people to ask questions and to be free to talk about these things, because the issue is to, remove the stigma and the taboo that comes with talking about sex. When you say sex, I posted your pictures, like your article pictures, if I may call it, on my status, and people are like, why do you post things? You're a Christian, you're not supposed to post those things. I'm like, no, I think it's about time we talk about these things. It's about time we put it on the table and educate people that if you're not doing well in that department, there are ways in which you can improve. So without wasting time, I'll hand it over to you to talk to us and educate us. People will be allowed to ask questions, if possible. You can guide the whole session as you wish. But thank you so much, and over to you.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me. I am excited to be having this conversation and discussing such an important conversation and topic which affects all of us as humans, as people in relationships, as families. We have families, and we deal with this on a daily basis. So I'm Ndileka Mhlauli. I'm a sex and intimacy coach, sexual health advocate. I'm also a sex educator. As mentioned before, I've created platforms, mostly online, but I do also do work offline, and create spaces where I educate people, couples, individuals about sex, sexuality, relationship dynamics, and obviously intimacy challenges that we face on a daily basis. So my mission is just to facilitate conversations such as these ones, and just, give people a platform, an opportunity to express themselves, ask questions, learn, and also be exposed to information, because there's so much information out there. I know we have the internet now, but still, people don't know where to go to get the right information. I believe I'm a beacon of hope, and I'm a beacon of light, and I carry so much knowledge that I want to share with everyone. So I didn't prepare a formal presentation to display, but I prepared like a short opening for us to have a conversation. I would like this to be as conversational as possible, more than me just giving information. So everyone on this platform can have an opportunity to ask questions, and obviously we can do a back and forth, just unpacking the different direction that you wanted to take this conversation. So just to kick it off, I just want us to understand what sex education is. And I think a lot of people, when they think about sex education, they think, oh, we're going to talk about sex. Yes, we do talk about sex, but sex education is just a different range of programs and educational interventions and other activities that provide an opportunity for people to gain knowledge and skills that will support their ability to lead healthy and satisfying sexual lives. Basically, it's information sharing, but also skills and techniques that you can apply to your daily lives, either in how you are expressing yourself or how you define your own sexuality or intimacy, or even develop a relationship with sexuality or unpack it for yourself or in your relationships. I find that a lot of people struggle to, express themselves in relationships due to the fact that they haven't defined their own relationship with intimacy or sexuality. So, and just to then unpack what sexuality is, it's basically different aspects and dimensions that informs who you are as a human being. And these can include sex, gender, sexual orientation and gender identity, emotional attachment and love relationships, eroticism, which is desire and pleasure, and reproduction. And these are experienced and expressed in our thoughts, our fantasies, our desires, our beliefs, values, our attitudes, and our roles in society and in our relationships. So we pick these things up from way younger in our family environments. We look at how people behave, and that informs who we are in our sexuality as we grow up. Things we see around society, what society deems as normal behavior around sexuality and sex. It's basically a combination of biological, psychological, socio-economic, and cultural or religious or spiritual factors. So sex education can help, couples, relationships, to address the inequalities in relationships, and these are obviously informed by the social expectations or the social norms that currently exist in our societies. So it can help prevent some sort of violence by addressing these inequalities and also harmful gender norms that currently exist in society. So also these societal norms, like I've said, they're a reflection of the expectations in gender, behavior, This includes sexual behavior and preferences. For instance, there's a socially acceptable way to behave in relationships and express yourselves. For instance, again, if a woman is sexually expressive in society, is comfortable in expressing their sexuality, they are shamed for it or called names, and possibly in relationships accused of cheating. So in a couple setting, if a woman is a bit expressive than the male partner, they are viewed as, you either cheating on me or you are out there. We get slut shamed for it. So another aspect to it, looking at the male figure, is men are always viewed as people who are initiators of sex, or who always want sex. I think in relationships, those are the assumptions we make, expectations we have of the different gender roles that we play with our partners. So these norms bring about challenges in relationships and couple struggles. And couple always struggle to address them and even express their unhappiness about certain aspects of their relationships. So sex education can encourage a reflection of these societal norms, and also challenge, once you have information about a healthy way of looking at different situations, you start to be in a position where you are reflective of what you've always known, always learned about life and how you're supposed to behave, and you start looking at it from a different eye. So it gives you an opportunity to reflect and also challenge, also check, is this something that I'm comfortable with? I've been doing this all my life. Am I comfortable with doing it? Because now I've got a different piece of information. I've been given a different perspective about things. So it also promotes a shift in attitude, and also highlights, gender issues or violence. So again, it takes us back to the issue of what is GBV. And I know the common cases that people refer to when they speak about GBV is mostly physical and sexual, but this is due to what's the reported cases that are out there in public, and we've also witnessed around us. Also, there's an emotional aspect to GBV, and there's also a financial aspect to it, because there's financial disparities amongst people. One of the benefits, again, of sex education is it encourages healthy communication in relationships. Throughout sex education, the common thread is communication. So in my sessions with individuals or couples, I look at how do you currently communicate in the relationship. I try to then unpack it from that point of view as to, have you guys created a safe space to express yourself or receive feedback or give feedback? Also, how do you resolve conflict in the relationship? So that's one of the things that are beneficial that comes with sex education. It promotes health and well-being because it focuses on issues around sexual health, regular taking care of your regular testing and checking of STIs and HIV, because if you take care of yourself, you indirectly taking care of your partner. And it also focuses on concepts like consent, which is a huge part of trying to prevent GBV. We require a lot of unpacking when it comes to consent in relationships and in our daily lives. So the challenge here is always I'm in a relationship, the expectation is I should be having sex with my partner, even when I don't feel like it. When the concept of consent is not present in relationship, you find that a lot of couples have sex out of obligation or have sex because they're trying to please the next partner. So focusing and teaching about consent will help also couples, get to a place where they're comfortable to even request consent continuously throughout the relationship, been together for a month or 5 years, or even if you are married to your partner. Because now the assumption is, I'm married, your body belongs to me, you are obliged to have sex with me because we are together. And consent does not stop, because it doesn't always, it doesn't only stop at, the first time you're having sex and whether you're checking in if, she's okay or he's okay to have sex with you. So those are the things I wanted to highlight, but I think we can further unpack them as we get into the conversation. So basically, just to round it up, if you're in a position where you are getting a lot of information about your lives or information about sex and sexuality and different ideas and ideals around the topic, gives you an opportunity to be empowered. And once you're empowered, you can then learn or gain the courage to be more expressive about how you feel and how you view things. So then lead the way to create a safe space in the relationship for conversation to happen, continuous conversation to happen. I will stop it right there, then take it back to you so we can open up the conversation.
Thank you so much. I've written quite a lot of questions, but I don't want us to have a dialogue. Like you said, would like to have everybody else participating. Maybe while they are thinking about the questions they would like to raise, participants, you're welcome to raise your hand and ask questions, ask clarity-seeking questions. Like I said, this is one of those topics which people would like, what will people think about me? So this is a safe space. You can ask the questions without feeling that you're going to be judged. Ndileka, how do we, as individuals, create a safe space for communication? Because I think that will be the starting point. Maybe you can take us through like simple steps which people can apply for them to create that safe space of communication without being afraid of being judged.
Yeah. So, I think the first step is just making sure that, both parties are on the same level in terms of wanting to work on things in the relationship. Oftentimes you find people have been together for a long period of time or have been married for a while. They just don't know where to start because they've been together, but they're not communicating. They've swept a lot of things under the carpet. Only work, or you can only fix it if both of you are willing to put in the work. One person says, okay, I think there's a problem here and I want us to work on it, but the other person is not willing to come to the party. Right there, you're unable to create a safe space because there's one pulling left and one trying to bring the other together. So I'll speak from a session point of view. So when a couple comes to see me, it means they've agreed and they have decided that, you know what, we both have a problem, or there is a problem that we've identified in this relationship, and we think solutions to sort it out. So when they get to me, you know, it's always trying to unpack as to, like I said, how do you communicate on a normal basis, like on a from the morning, the moment you wake up, what happens, you know? And you find that a lot of couples don't talk, you know. Once you've been together for a long time, you end up talking about things that are happening around you, like the kids, if you have kids, bills, work, you know, other things, your mother-in-law, family, and everything else, but, you know, the actual relationship. So you find that couples just end up talking about that, and they think they are talking, they think they are communicating, but they're actually not. So the first step is to put back the focus into the relationship, sort of like, you know, when you start dating, all you want to do is just find out about this next person. Like, you want to talk to them to figure out who they are, what they're about. And, you know, you just want to talk to them all the time. So it's just to create that opportunity again. And you do that by making time to talk and intentionally talking about your relationship, you know, the way you are, how you feel. Are you happy right now with how things are happening? Is there something that you're particularly, you feel like you're grieved about or you're unhappy about? How do you feel? How do you think about the way I talk to you? You know, is it in a healthy, loving way, or it feels condescending and you're always talking down to me, you're not listening to me? So those are the kind of aspects you have to then look at. You know, when I'm sitting with a couple, then I ask, do you feel heard? Do you feel understood? Do you feel you are given an opportunity to express yourself? Those are the fundamental elements of communicating. You know, do you feel safe enough to say something and feel like it was well received without receiving a defense mechanism or responses, or being accused of you know, always starting a fight? Because most times you find that in the relationship there'll be one person who always wants to talk and the other doesn't. But it's also, again, reflects back to the types of people we are, and also understanding how do we deal with discomfort or uncomfortable conversations or even conflict. Because you find that when you get to conflict stages, if you don't talk, there's one person who will probably always you know, withdraw or shut down completely. And then the one who's always talking feels like they are talking on their own. So there's different aspects to it, and it's just basically unpacking where you are as a couple, and then the different techniques will then be based on, you know, where you are as a couple, you know. And small things like I said, your daily conversation, bring back the love in the communication, text each other, tell each other how grateful you are to have the other person, you know. Tell the person how you feel about them on a daily basis if you can, you know. When you're away from them, tell them you miss them. I'm thinking about you. How's your day? You know, that's such an important aspect of couples living together. At the end of the day, every single day, make time to reflect on your day. How was your day? And I know the response is like, oh, it was good, and then you go back to talking about work. But that question is really checking in on how you feel. your day went. So yeah, it's small things like that that you reintroduce into the relationship, that can help build, a safe space, and an intimate connection as to, okay, I feel safe, I can talk to this person, I can just say, you know what, I'm sad today, I don't know what to do, or I just feel sad, and the person is able to be like, okay, you feel sad, and put themselves in a position of, what can I do to probably make you feel better or make you feel loved in this moment. But it's also then different for, if you're starting to date, then I would recommend you outright talk about everything from the beginning, and create that safe space as to asking each other questions. If talking is a problem, you can write each other letters. You can write down questions that you both can answer, up to a point where you get comfortable enough to have a proper conversation, because some people struggle with that. So if you ask questions that you both will answer, then you can sit down and read the answers that, the answers that you both have, to those questions.
Wow. We've got a hand, Shadrach. You can go ahead.
Thanks a lot. My greetings to the speaker for today. What a presentation. But what I want to find out is you made so much emphasis on consent in a sexual activity between partners. But what I want to find out from you is from maybe it's more of a legal perspective more than anything else.
Okay.
I'm sure you might have heard a lot of criticism currently, not so long in the media, about the decision by Ngogaitobi when he was the acting judge. Maybe in 2 seconds, the facts of the matter are as follows. There was a girlfriend and a boyfriend. They engaged in a sexual activity, but in the middle of it, she consent apparently was she decided not to consent anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a ruling that says no. There was consent. You cannot you cannot in the middle of the process say I'm withdrawing my consent. Maybe I might want to get your reflection on that. And secondly, do you think in a marriage relationship,
Yeah.
is it necessary that every time we engage as couple in sexual activity, each and every, maybe the practicality of it, each and every time, must I try to find out from my partner whether she's consenting to it or not, given that consent can either be implied or it can be expressed. So yeah, maybe more reflection on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more interested in, more especially from the legal angle. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Shadrach. So with regards to that case, specifically, my personal views are different from the judge. And I'll tell you why. It's based on the fact that consent needs to continuous process. For instance, you need to check in with the person you are having a sexual activity with at every stage and figure out still comfortable. And consent can be withdrawn at any stage during the sexual activity, whether the minute after penetration happens, or now we're both naked and I feel like I don't want to continue anymore. I can say, hey, I don't want to continue anymore. But again, that reflects back to the expressiveness of the partner. So she obviously said no, but naked, and the guy just took it as a way for him to coerce her or convince her to continue, which happens in situations like that. You know, most cases, the girl will say no. This communicates to the guy that, no, let me convince her. Maybe she's not sure. Maybe she's overthinking. Let me coerce her and convince her that this is okay. And again, coercing someone into an activity or having sex with you is not consent. So it's a bit tricky because, again, in this country, a lot of gray areas when it comes to sexual assault and sexual abuse and the concept of consent. And I think it's due to the fact that as a country, as a whole, the sex topic has been a taboo and is still a taboo. We don't talk about it. Therefore, consent is not something we totally and fully understand. I think in the beginning of your question, you were mentioning that I'm speaking about consent from a sexual perspective, but if we look at consent holistically in how we behave as human beings, I'll make an example with children. So when adults to children, we don't ask kids whether they are comfortable to hug us. We don't ask them for hugs. We don't ask for kisses. We automatically kiss babies because they're so cute and we just want to kiss them. We do that. But we don't ask for their permission to do certain things. And this is just a normal behavior that we have as human beings and South Africans, that consent is not entrenched or instilled in us in our daily living and behavior as people. So therefore, by the time we get to the bedroom, it's hard to be specific or clearly distinguish what consent is. So that case, from that perspective, is a bit gray area. But from what I know about consent, that's why I'm saying I'm disagreeing with the judge based on what consent is and what it stands for. It's not coercion. You can withdraw it at any point you want to. The next person is supposed to, you know, establish whether you are comfortable or you consent. Like practically, it would be something like, are you still okay? Are you still good? Can we continue? Or do you like this? You know, just to give it a practical feel. Because I know sometimes it feels like, you know, you have to ask, okay, can I now penetrate? It takes away obviously the fun and in the sexual activity, if I may put it. And then now to answer your second question, speaking to what I'm saying now, if you're married or in a long-term relationship, sometimes consent is given with body language. supposed to be in a position where you kind of understand your partner and kind of can figure out when they are uncomfortable with something. Their body will also show you that they're uncomfortable. Most cases, you know, you get home at night and you want to have sex with your partner, they probably say they're tired at first. That's already a communication from, it's not direct, but it's like, okay, I'm not in the mood right now. You probably then coerce them by probably kissing or trying to, you know, get them in the mood. They've already communicated that I'm not in the mood. You're coercing them into it. So sometimes it's the body language, sometimes it's not as direct as no, I don't want to. Sometimes it's not easy to say I don't feel like sex, because again, there's an expectation if you're married or in a relationship that you are supposed to have sex with your partner all the time when they ask for it. Not sure if I've answered your question, Cedric.
No, you did, thanks.
Okay.
You did, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mashudu, I'll ask you to raise your point so that we can have it on record, just to save time also, if you don't mind. And there's also somebody who was supporting Mr. Tiva, who was supporting the question by Shadrach. But I'll ask my, Sharon to pose her questions, if you don't mind. She's still preparing herself. There's an issue of culture.
Okay.
The modernized or the middle class people may understand what we are talking about, but those who are in the rural area, so those who are operating or living within the confines of tradition and the expectations and teachings that says man comes home and when a man wants, you have to. So
Yeah.
there's no consent, there's no I want or I don't want, you just have to do.
Yeah.
How do we deal with that as part of improving the communication? And I think even the teachings that men actually do get you know, taught, whether I'm not sure, but I get the sense that when they go to the mountain, there are specific teachings that they are taught, because you get to hear, no, you must be a man, you must treat a man a woman the way a man is supposed to treat them. And that does not give a woman an opportunity to consent. But in the process, it creates resentment, it creates anger, it creates, you know, fights. It makes this other partner feel unappreciated. And yeah, maybe without elaborating more, but how do we deal with that? The cultural side, and where does the sex education fit in also?
Okay, so I obviously can't speak about what happens at the mountain, because I don't know what happens at the mountains and what they teach men. But the societal behavior and acceptance of, you know, sexual roles, I mean, between men and women are taught to preserve themselves and keep themselves pure as a gift to the man who will eventually marry the woman, right? If men are encouraged to go out and explore and chase as many girls as possible.
Mashudu was saying, let me get it correctly. I like what you said about how couples respond to each other to each other's questions when asked about how was their day. Usually we tend to talk more about how hectic and many meetings we've had, rather than expressing how one feels. So she's confirming exactly what you were talking about in terms of focusing more on the meetings. I was just whiling away time so that you can come back.
What I was saying is men are encouraged to, conquer women and, chase after women, have as many women as you can. And that depicts how much of a man you are, like, you're masculine, you're the best at it, and there's like a competition amongst men. So now the challenge becomes you get in a relationship, and as a woman, I'm taught to preserve myself. So I've preserved myself, and I am now this virgin. And virginity, again, is a social construct. And I'm giving my virginity to this man who I've kept myself pure for. Then the man then obviously takes my virginity, and even for that there's like a proudness and pride in that, like I'm married a virgin. And culturally, women get celebrated for keeping themselves pure, and they held up high, in status, in terms of status, and you're better than the women who have had sex, and a woman who've had sex or have had 2 or 3 or even more partners is seen as damaged goods. Culturally, those are not healthy ways of teaching us about sex and sexuality, because we get into relationships. As a woman who was pure, I don't know how to please my husband, for instance. I don't know how to express myself, whether to let them know that I don't enjoy sex, for instance. And 2, there's no relationship with pleasure when it comes to women. We are not taught to have a relationship with pleasure, because sex is seen as something for men. It's only pleasurable for men. There's also a conflicting perspective, because now having sex with your partner and you're enjoying it, but you can't even express that enjoyment to your partner to say, hey, I'm actually quite enjoying you, or I'm enjoying what we're doing. There's also fear of expressing even the good parts of sex. Education from the disempowerment of women teaches them about pleasure. It teaches them to have a relationship with pleasure. It to understand their bodies, that, hey, sex is for you as well. You can and are allowed to enjoy sex with someone, or with your partner, or with your husband. And when you are having sex, you can have when you want to, when you feel like it. It's okay to enjoy sex. The kind of like positive messages or messaging around pleasure for women. Again, for men, it then gives them a perspective that, hey, sex is for everyone. It doesn't mean when a woman has had a few partners outside of you that they're a slut or a whore, as some of the normal common names that women are called. And you know, she's also a human being who's a sexual being and has sexual urges just like you do. And in some cases, women do enjoy sex more than other guys, you know, and the expectation is guys always enjoy sex. And in my experience, I've met men who don't enjoy sex or who don't like to have it all the time. You know, they want to have it when they want to have it. But the assumption is all men love sex, all men want to have sex all the time, and women don't know anything about sex. They don't have sexual urges, they don't get horny, which is the common word we use. So once you realize that our bodies ultimately are the same, how we behave is the same, there's no difference besides, you know, the boobs and the, you know, big bums and everything else, but our genitals react the same way. Ejaculation for men, we have ejaculation for women. Arousal for men, there's arousal for women. You know, the clitoris is a pleasure point for women. The penis is the pleasure point for men. You know, those things are similar, but obviously as people we don't know that because we don't even understand our own bodies.
We don't understand our own bodies. Noktula, I saw your microphone on. Do you want to say something? Okay. You spoke about men being perceived as initiative.
Hello.
Yes, you can go ahead.
She's back.
I don't know, the network today is very, very bad.
Sorry, but you can proceed if you can.
I greet you, everyone, and thank you, Linda. Even though I join you later, but I'm able to catch up what is going on. It's quite an informative lesson, and especially for me, you know, me, I'm a child of God. But when it comes to issues like this, I can tell you and I can declare that those are the things that I don't deprive myself. Firstly, on the issues of a sexual relationship between partners, because you have seen maybe through experience and seeing what is going around with people we know, and when you are chatting with other ladies, like Linda explaining that you don't have to wait for a man to express how you feel. I might be a strong child of God, but when it comes to the issues or that relate to my body, I can provoke. I can do whatever, not to please anybody, but to please and satisfy myself in relation and in accordance. Unfortunately, I couldn't be with my partner here because he's got some issues outside. But I can relate, and it's nice to start, even though our culture, sometimes we grew up, like you are explaining, issues of respecting or withholding yourself. But those are the things that in the long run destroy, because you pretend to be something that you are not. And at the end of the day, it does not build you up, but it destroys you. So when you see, especially married couple, a man leave a wife and go and look for sex outside, first thing that you have to ask yourself is why. So such things, we have to be open, be fair to one another, and speak about it all the time. And there is this question that everyone must be satisfied. Yes, it cannot be every day, especially to us who are Christians. They are, like, for example, now I'm coming from a 40 days fasting, but during that period of 40 days fasting, If my husband is looking for something, I cannot just now hide everything because of fasting. He's a Christian also, but the nature is calling. We know how to satisfy each other. So I'm saying sometimes people, they use the Bible to hide. Sometimes people, they use whatever, but at the end of the day, this whole issue, it's between, because I always say, chicken, they are not afraid to express themselves. Dogs, they are not afraid to express themselves in public. But why in your closed setup of your home, you cannot express how you feel with one another and do whatever so that it will improve? You see the love the children, they see between parents. It's the things that happened in the closet, and then it comes out. Hence, I'm able to talk everything about my son. Sexual relationship, when can you do it? How can you be ready for it? Know why you are doing it, all those things. So our culture, we cannot blame ourselves, but maybe the socialization of our growing up has impacted on those issues as well. But for me now, I'm a child of God, I'm an evangelist, but that's one thing that I cannot deprive myself and my husband. If sometimes he knows me, if he was here, he was going to testify that I can provoke if I want to. I can provoke and I can provoke, I'm telling you. And until you say, an evangelist, if the church, they can see, like they said, an evangelist is a married woman. You know those things, and it becomes nice in the house because we engage and we are talking about those issues. Thank you so much for raising this up, Linda. Thank you.
Ndileka is the name. I think she she
I'm
brought
just
it.
using someone's
Yeah.
someone's Zoom, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. That was great. I mean, just to add on to that, just how we relate to each other. Everyone wants to feel loved, wanted in the relationship. So again, speaking to the fact that she initiates and she feels like she wants to, which is an important aspect that even men, complain about a lot. I'm the one who's always initiating sex. It seems like I'm the only one who wants to have sex. And your partners do want to feel loved and wanted as well. So it's also important to take, your pleasure into consideration, but also take the next person's pleasure into consideration as well. Two people giving each other pleasure and also receiving pleasure from each other. Just to add on what she was saying.
Yeah, she already touched on the initiating part, and you have already alluded to issues of initiation. But I wanted to also say, because men have got used to initiating, and then women in most cases would resort to now sitting back and not making those moves. You spoke about sexuality. Does it have to be about sex? intimacy and for the relationship to be durable? Does it have to be about penetration?
No. So I know when we talk about intimacy, everyone thinks about the physical act of sex. That's literally one aspect to it. Intimacy in a relationship is on different levels. Emotional connection, intellectually, how do you guys, relate to each other? How do you guys spend time together? How do you connect in general as a couple? Do you do things that you both enjoy? That can be how you create a satisfying relationship, if I may put it like that. So spiritually as well, just like was talking about, she's a Christian, her husband is a Christian. They connect in that space together. But also spirituality is different for everyone. How do you connect spiritually with your partner? Do you make time, if you guys are Christians, to read the Bible together or to pray together? Practice other ways. If you're cultural, how are you connecting culturally to speak to the spiritual aspect from a cultural perspective? Intellectually, what types of conversations are you having? If one person is interested in law and the other is interested in, I don't know, art, what thing? Are you supporting each other and meeting each other halfway? So intimacy is more than just sex. It's more than just penetrative sex. And speaking to the physical aspect of intimacy, penetrative sex is not the end all be all of how you can connect with your partner. I've had couples who don't enjoy sex at all, penetrative sex at all. So they don't have penetrative sex. They do everything else besides penetrative sex, but they've gotten to a point where they understand, but it's through communication, unpacking what their sex life looks like, what it means for them. And they came to an agreement that actually I don't enjoy sex, and the other one's like, I also don't enjoy penetrative sex. Okay, how do we still connect through physical touch if we're taking away the conventional way of having sex? Intimacy is different levels of connecting with each other just to make the whole relationship feel wholesome, also satisfying on different aspects.
So in other words, those who probably would want to explore, at the end of the session, Ndileka is going to share her details, and then you can keep in touch so that you can have sessions with her on how she can advise you on areas that you can improve on for your relationship to be pleasurable without necessarily going the conventional way. People get beaten in houses, and they would use makeup to cover up. In most cases, it will be women, but also men do get beaten in some instances.
Yeah.
And this will be because probably they don't get to satisfy each other, and the communication has broken down, and this will go on and on and on, and they become too proud to even approach counselors or even come to people like yourselves, and this lead to them in some instances killing each other or divorcing.
Yeah.
What advice would you give those that have reached I think the point of being so, like, rage is part of what they are used to. They fight almost every day, and when you ask why are you fighting, you'll find that it's because of sexual related issues which they are not able to resolve or even to communicate about. So what would be your advice on those?
Most times sexual challenges or sex challenges have very little to do with the actual sex. You find that a couple will, or the guy or the lady will say, you know, we're not having sex anymore. But you find that maybe they use sex as a way to connect. And if it's not happening anymore, it means there's something wrong. So I'm saying sometimes, in most cases, sex challenges are not really about sex, but there's underlying issues, which is mostly psychological. So you find that issues of rage or anger or resentment or kind of like, you know, violent emotions, or rather negative emotions, don't even stem from the relationship. The person just has internal, you know, challenges and probably past traumas that they're dealing with, but they haven't dealt with all of that in a healthy manner. And their way of dealing with these things is to deflect, you know, use other ways to express themselves. And that's why you'd find, you know, mostly men who can't express themselves or say how they feel, or don't have the platform to say how they feel, to show whatever's inside, is to physically be abusive to someone else, which is mostly obviously the female partners. And for women as well, who are physically abusive to their partners, is again due to the fact that probably have expressed or probably can't express what they feel inside. There's frustration, and you know, the first time it happens, it's like, I'm gonna slap, and there was no reaction, or he didn't slap me back. So that's my way of communicating that I'm angry. Now that I'm gonna do it all the time, because so I can't find the right words to say that I'm upset or angry. I would recommend, you know, couples to be in therapy, like for as long as they're together, whether it's something they do together or as individuals, because we all carry past traumas, or you know, we've dealt with grief and we haven't really processed it in our lives, or how that looks like for us going forward. And it affects a lot of romantic relationships, obviously, because this is the closest person that is in your life. You live with this person, you are with this person all the time. I would recommend, you know, if you aren't able to express yourself as a couple, you know, counseling, to sort therapy. And this gives you a platform to speak to a very neutral person who can hear the both of you out, but also help you process emotions and challenges and traumas, conflict that you may have as individuals and as a couple, and also then advise you how to move forward in a very healthy manner, and how you can both communicate to each other, especially in conflict. You know, sometimes one person's too angry and they will say, I don't want to talk about this right now, but the next person will push, we have to talk about it now. That means the person who's pushing is not listening to the feedback from the other person. The other person is probably too upset to have a conversation, or they are aware that when they get too upset, they get physical. I've literally said to the other person, I don't want to talk about it right now. So what should happen in that situation is they should be okay, cool, you don't want to talk about this right now because emotions are high, you are probably upset. let's calm down. We'll revisit this either tomorrow or when you're ready to talk about it. The healthy way of communicating, you know, in the relationship. Listen, you give feedback, but also you must be in a position to receive feedback as well. So I'd say counseling helps because we're not equipped with skills and as to how we can communicate better or express ourselves better. And also it's a lifelong process. Because there's two different peoples who are raised, people who are raised differently, have different views about the world. And therefore, obviously, there will be, you know, disagreement or not seeing the same perspective. And it's not even about having the next person agree with you, but just accepting that you both have different views, but, you know, you find common ground as to like, okay, cool, we disagree, but how do we then carry on? Like, where's our common ground? What can we agree on? And then you move forward from that. But communication and just dealing with conflict and just your emotions, because we evolve as change in relationships. It's important to always have an outlet if you are not at a point where you can have healthy communication.
Mhm. People have now lost a lot of jobs, and in most cases it will be men who have lost their jobs, but in the process it end up affecting the relationship, because now the woman will have to carry all the responsibilities, and in the process they come back to what you were saying, the emotional abuse and the financial, you said financial,
Yeah.
financial aspects of GBV and emotional aspects of GBV. They will use, I'm talking as a woman also, and because I've got women who will come and speak to me, and also men who will come and speak to me about things that would be happening. So people will use, or women will use that as a tool to deal, or to sort of deal with the men. No, you are not working, you are not man enough, you are not good enough. And that in the process affect the sexual side of things. Then the men end up now abusing. Not that it's justified, but the continuous provocation or provoking of the men in such instances. What is it that women can do to avoid such situation? Because you said something very profound when Shadrach asked a question about consent. For me, when I interpret it, it's like you constantly give love even when you don't feel like it's like even when you feel you have to satisfy yourself, but you constantly check on the other person whether they are okay. But when it comes to issues of finance and emotions, people I think put that in the drawer, and then they start now abusing each other, which leads now to the GBV that we are talking about. What would be the advice over and above counseling?
Yeah. So, you know, what you've just mentioned is part of, again, the societal norms that we live within, you know, the whole expectation that, you know, a man should be a provider. You know, men are raised to be providers and women are raised to, you know, take care of the household. However, in modern times, you know, the gender roles have changed quite a bit, as you've mentioned, like where a man loses their job or source of income. In most households, you'd find that there's already two incomes, right? So then the woman would then have to, you know, substitute or provide for the family. So it's a bit of a tough one because it goes back to us understanding ourselves as individuals. Why am I in this relationship? Why am I getting married? Why am I getting married to this person? What type of person is this? Have you figured out if your partner is compatible in every aspect of how you want your life to look like, or how to live your life? And I'm talking about aspects like, is this person supportive? Can I rely on this person if things are not going well on my side? Can I talk to this person? Can I trust this person? Is this person loving? Whatever tick box you have for yourself. And it boils down to, why am I with this person? And I know we get frustrated, with life and, challenges that we have, but in a situation where people are together as partners, and I love to use the word partners, because if you're with someone, you're in a partnership with that person. And, I think we all understand what partnership is. It means we're building together, but also if one partner is lacking at some point, the other partner supports. We show up for each other in different ways in relationships, not just monetary. And this whole 50-50 thing is not really a true reflection of what happens in relationships, because most times, when the other person, whether it's emotionally, whether it's parenting, whether it's just doing things in the relationship, when someone is, having challenges in their own personal life and can't show up, at that point, the next partner should give, 120 just to balance the other person's, 80%. What I'm trying to say is, we give our all. We should be giving our all in relationships as partners, and that should be 100%. But there are times when we have to support each other because life happens. And if you are with a person that you feel like you can build with, it won't be an issue when you lose an income or you lose your income. It will be a discussion as to, okay, this has happened. How do we deal with it as a couple? Again, it goes back to communication. How do you deal with challenges as a couple? Do you find solutions together, or is a blame game, and one always wants to look like I'm perfect and you're always messing up, or you're bad, or you do things wrong, or whatever? So again, it's all about improving communication. And I think if we can just master that, or kind of like deal with the fact that, or accept that we are bad communicators. Like even myself, I'm not going to say I'm a great communicator. I can't say I'm the master of communication, because I'm dealing with a human being, who's different from me, and who will say things that will make me either think, or maybe be emotional, or whatever. So for couples, it's important to try and master, or get to a point where you get to an understanding of how you communicate, how do you deal with challenges as a couple, because it boils down to that. So what you've mentioned is, you go back to the societal norms, because it's all we know. That's why women would then talk down on men or insult men when they aren't providing, or men would get frustrated because I can't provide for my family, so I'm frustrated. And again, how do I deal with that? I'm emotional. I can't talk to this woman because she just wants to see me provide. She doesn't want to hear anything else from me. She doesn't want to hear how I feel about the fact that I lost my job. I'm supposed to have a plan as a man. So therefore, I'm frustrated. My outlet is here in the house. So I'm going to express myself, by physically being abusive, because I'm frustrated. I don't have any way that I can, offload or talk to. I don't have support, which is an important part of being in a relationship. Do you feel supported in a relationship?
There's a question from Buzo. How do you address sexual incompatibility in a relationship? Is the only solution to dissolve the relationship?
Okay, so ideally, you should be determining if someone is compatible to you right in the beginning, well, sexually, right in the beginning of a relationship. I encourage this because we always look at, is this girl beautiful, tick, is she intelligent, does she have a job, does she, we have a list of things that we look for in our female partners or our male partners, but we never put sex as a tick box. And that's also a huge part of whether we are happy or not in the relationship, because it's just as important as communication. So that's why I'm now speaking about it from the beginning of when you're dating. You should try to determine, am I sexually compatible with this person? And what that means is this person that I'm trying to be with open to enjoying sex? Does she enjoy sex? Does he enjoy sex? Does he enjoy trying new things? Does she enjoy trying new things? Is the person open to receiving feedback? And I mean feedback in terms of, if someone understands pleasure for themselves, and I can actually teach you how to understand my body as well. You trying to figure out, is this person open to give, to receive feedback? Is this person, do they enjoy sex in general? Do they enjoy penetrative sex? Do they not enjoy penetrative sex? So ideally in the beginning of the relationship, I'd like to advise people to determine or establish that in the beginning. So in a case where you've been in a relationship with someone already, and that wasn't the case, and you guys are having sex or have been having sex, but you feel like the person or your partner is not compatible to you. So how you determine if you can fix it goes back to communication. You can't just decide, okay, this person's not compatible to me. I've suggested things, they're not interested. I've asked for them to initiate, they're not interested. I've asked for them to, this is how I like, certain things when we are having sex, and they're not doing it. They don't take initiative. They don't look interested. They are just there, and they just bring their bodies, and that's that, So in that case, you have to then have a conversation and address what you're unhappy about. And hopefully your partner is in a position to receive that feedback and also want to do better, because the more you talk about sex, the better it becomes. That's also a very important thing to note. The more you talk about it, the better it becomes, because then you find ways to improve on it. Then you find ways to please your partner, because your partner will be like, okay, no, I'd like to try this, or I like this more. Or then you're receiving feedback. You're literally receiving feedback of things that you can do during your sexual activities. But if your partner is unable to receive feedback, or is not willing to change or try to change or even make an effort, then I think, it's not a matter of just saying, okay, dissolve the relationship and then just, leave, because again, even that aspect is all about your personal, decision. Like, is sex that important to you? And if it is, what are you willing to do about it? And if you are doing something about it, is this a deal breaker for you? So if it is a deal breaker, then you have a choice to leave. If you've tried and tried again, if you feel so strongly about it, you can leave. If you don't, then you can stay. and maybe then find another solution, which is obviously try me, for instance, and I can kind of help you unpack the intimacy, but your partner has to be willing to try with you. And then that's why you would find in most cases, you have partners going outside of their relationships, outside of their marriages, to try and satisfy themselves sexually because their needs are not met in the relationship. So determining and working through sexual compatibility is important, but I also want to note that we are sexual beings. Our interests, our likes, and how we feel about certain things around sexuality changes over time. So if you've been together for like 10 years, for instance, or 5 years, what you enjoyed doing in the first year of your relationship sexually might look different to 5 years later. So if we also give each other the opportunity or the space to change and evolve as human beings, I think we can create then a safe space for our sex lives to also change and evolve. And also, look at how we can, meet each other where we are at that point in time. So I hope I've answered your question, Buzwe.
I hope so. You'll indicate, Buzwe, if you still want to follow up. Tebogo, your hand is up. You can go ahead.
Thank you very much for this informative session, and it's really interesting. I'm actually like writing down so many things that I'm learning here, and I think what we are taking very lightly is the emotional aspect of sex, as you indicated, Linda, in your presentation. Like, it's just not only limited to penetration. There's a whole other aspects surrounding sex, which makes it worthy to have. I would like to get your opinion on two issues. The one, I think maybe it's a continuation of a legal question that was asked earlier. And the other one, I think it's more about the emotional part of sex. With the legal question, there was more on it's more about the consent. I think it's the most legal aspect of the sexual interaction. We've seen situations wherein people I'll be in a relationship, or will be in a relationship for however period of time. And after some time, you hear that one partner, either mostly women do this, but I suppose there are men who might also be who might do that. I'm not sure. Wherein I would say, in a particular time of our relationship, I was actually forced or coerced into having sex, and that was like 2 years ago. But I continued in a relationship with the person, and or even as recent as I'm this person is my boyfriend or husband or whatever, but I did not give consent on a particular day, and we need to take legal. I'm considering taking legal action regarding that. My question is there a way for either partner to prove that there was consent, wherein I had sexual intercourse with you, and we continued with our happy relationship, or supposedly happy relationship. Then later I said no, but actually I never give consent. Is there a way wherein a partner can indicate, should it get to court, can indicate whether, can prove whether the consent was there, either physically or implied, as you indicated earlier? The second question that I have, I would like your opinion on, is I was engaging with this other friend of mine, and we talk, with friends we can talk about things. And she said something which I'm struggling to understand, and I was like actually speechless when she said she fought with her partner and they are not on talking terms. But when they get to the bedroom, they say there's a difference between, like they separate the issues. So when they get to the bedroom, they're not talking to each other, but bedroom is a different business. So they would still continue with their conjugal activities, but tomorrow wake up, they're still where they were at the impasse that they were in the day before. And I found myself not being able to correlate on that. And yeah, for me, I found, well, with my own interpretation, I was like, it was a way of avoiding the conversation or whatever, but they said they were comfortable with how they were doing their things. So I would just like to get your opinion on that aspect. Thank you. I would limit to that. Thank you.
Okay, Ndileka, let me another hand before you respond.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Naledi, I saw your hand was up.
then I will attempt to answer Tebogo's questions. So the first question, speaking about the legal matter and, you know, how do you prove if you are in a relationship or you're married that you did not give consent? Let's say you reported the same day or the day after or even 2 years later. So the challenge with that is there's a lot of gray areas, especially when it comes to sexual assault in the country. And, you know, it's gonna be difficult to prove, because just like the judge in the previous case ruled that, you know, the lady couldn't have said yes and then halfway said no. You would get a challenge of, but you're married to this person. Like, why did you, how come you said no one day or the following day or that day, but on other days you were saying yes? So I think, you know, in people who are busy with sexual assault laws and all of that, they're working on that just to kind of make it as distinctive as possible, and to also give the clear guidelines as to make it clear as to when does one cross the line and how that looks like. I'll give you another point that I want to add to this. There's something called stealthing. And it's literally when you're having sex with someone and you probably say, okay, we should use a condom. I'm comfortable with us using a condom. But halfway through, either the person wearing the condom or the female partner removes the condom without your consent. Either removes the condom without you knowing, or just kind of like, you know, convinces you to remove the condom. That is a sexual assault. But however, you'd have a huge challenge trying to prove that even in court, you know, because then it's gonna question, okay, you consented to having sex, yes. You consented to using a condom, yes. But how can you prove that the person removed the condom without your knowledge, or coerced you to use a condom without your knowledge? So I think that's an ongoing research that's currently happening, just to kind of clearly, you know, state and distinguish what is sexual assault and what levels of it is recognized and stuff. So I think because of where we are in the country and the number of rape cases that we have and on a high, it's becoming very evident that, you know, these laws need to be as clear as possible. And again, there's also the challenge of men not accepting that they've raped someone when someone says, I've been raped. Because to them, again, because of societal norms and how we are raised, if a girl says, no, my job as a guy is to convince you until you say yes. So the behavior is the same, kind of like with all the guys, because it's the norm. That's the normal behavior that happens either in relationships when they're pursuing women, and, you know, it's a conquest, it's a game, it's a chase. And, you know, so even that, from a guy's perspective, there's been cases that came out and guys were accused of being rapists, and I've had personally guys ask me and give me scenarios similar to the one you've given me, and they've said, I actually don't think I did rape her, but she said I raped her, but I don't see things that way. But it's because we don't have clear laws around sexual assault, if it's, you know, outside of just the penetrative way of you're literally forcing yourself on someone, because there's other ways to sexually assault a person other than just, forcefully having sex with them. And then to answer the second question about couples having fights, but having sex, I'd say it's what works for them. I don't know if it's a healthy kind of it works for them, or it's them avoiding talking about the issues or deflecting the issues, or just avoiding it in its entirety. Because then my next question would be, okay, cool, you are connecting through sex, but are you dealing with the challenge or the fight that you're having? If we're not going to talk to each other, but we are having sex, there's some sort of disconnect, or we're just using sex just to keep the pulse on in the relationship. I'm not sure if everyone understands what I mean by that, but just like keep the heartbeat going, but we know things are not okay. Some people have really good sex and that's all they have going for their relationship. So they keep doing it because that's the only good thing in the relationship, or the only good thing that makes them feel good in the relationship. So it could be a number of factors, but obviously it's not a one size fits all for everyone. Some people have conflict but can't get themselves to have sex with their partner, because sex is not just physical. It's how you feel, your state of mind, your state of emotions. It relates to how you then feel sexually. Do you feel desire or not? So if there's a disconnect between those things, then obviously you're not gonna feel sensual and sexy and want to have sexy time with your partner when you're not feeling good. But other people can have it, but other people avoid sorting out conflict and use sex as, just to make themselves feel good for that point in time when it happens.
Okay, Naledi is saying that as a counselor herself, she is aware, or she gets to experience situations where couples will come and they can talk about everything else except the sex life challenges. Only when they come together on a one-on-one basis that they will be able to raise such issues. I think it boils back to the issue of not being free to communicate, which you alluded to. Do you think men feel safe to express themselves when you look at African men? Maybe I don't know about white African men. Are they in a position to express themselves based on your experience with them when you are counseling them, or talking to them, or their ego push them to using strength to communicate how they feel, and how can
Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and also follow and like our LinkedIn and Facebook page. See you next time.